Hello and welcome back. I'm Nicole, a cottage witch, and this is my basically a summary of my goals for 2026. I'm working on a DIY literature degree inspired by Candy of the Great Literary, I just about said Bake Off, Rabbit Hole, the Great Literary Rabbit Hole. I will link her channel down below. She's lovely, and she's done a couple videos of a wrap up on her year. Geez, I can't speak today. That bodes well for recording, and a video of what she wants to do in this coming year. And I just bumped the table. Sorry. Off to a brilliant start. Okay, so I've got a couple of notebooks. I have an abundance of notebooks, more notebooks than a person arguably needs. But, you know, the right notebook might fix everything. This one is from Italy. My parents brought it back, and it's very pretty. It's like handmade in Venice. It's so pretty. It's from a shop called Scriba Venice. It's beautiful. Whoops, the tassel came off. I'll have to fix that. Of a bookmark that she also got in Venice. Neat, yeah. And then another little notebook here. So I don't want to write like reviews and things down, but I might. There's a calendar coming of an artist I love, Orla Stevens, and I might jot down on there each day which books I read when, and maybe a couple of thoughts. I've started, I don't know if I have an example anywhere. I've started using a 3x3 sticky note in the back page, like on the back inside cover of a book, and just writing my notes on there as I go. And I quite like that method. Who did I steal that from? Antiquarian Librarian? Maybe? I might have borrowed that from him. Anyway, what did I get this one out for? I might put some of my writing in here, and then I might put a collection of poems I like in here. I'm a little undecided, but I definitely want to do something along those lines. We'll see. A couple of audiobooks that I don't have that I really want to read this year are, so once I finish Ulysses, because that's like the big book that's taken up all of my mental energy at the moment, I do want to get to the Magic Mountain. Who wrote that one? Was that Thomas Mann? I can't remember. I started reading it last year or the year before and got a few chapters in and just wasn't in the right headspace for it. Had too many other things going on. And it's not a short book. But Polyglot Reading, I think, is his channel. David? Is that his name? He's got some videos on the Magic Mountain. So I might watch those and then try and get back into it. Because Olga somebody, whose last name I've forgotten, has the Impulsium? Whatever that book is that's inspired by the Magic Mountain. But I want to read the Magic Mountain first and then read this other book. She's the one who wrote Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, which was also very good. So I do want to read her newest one. But I feel like since I've read a lot of classics, I should read the classic one first that it was based on and see what I think. I want to listen to The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones, maybe for Fanguary, which is Candy's challenge. I can't remember if it's just called Candy's Challenge. I can't remember much today. I'm not super useful. That's fantastic. Okay, some classics I want to read. Well, I want to read more Nabokov this year. I've got his memoir, Speak Memory, first published in 1951, and he revised it since then. And I'm just curious about him. And then after this, if I like this or find it interesting, I might also read. Stacy Schiff has a book on Vera, his wife, who apparently did quite a lot of work with him. So I might want to read that one too. We'll see. I do like Stacy Schiff's books. She wrote one on the witches and Cleopatra, and they're fantastic. So that's on my to-do list. Some poetry on my to-read list are, I want to read Tennyson's Idylls of the King, which are King Arthur legend focused. I haven't decided. I might listen to it and see if I like the rhythm of the audiobook narrator. Poetry with audiobooks is weird because sometimes it's good and sometimes it's just astonishingly bad, and I can't follow it. So to be determined. I have got to finish Dylan Thomas's poems. I started this year and got not quite halfway through, and I love them. They're beautiful. I got distracted by 3 million other books. So there's no good reason for my not having finished it other than there are just so many things to read. Anne Carson's Glass, Irony, and God is one I definitely want to read this year as well. She writes sort of essays in verse. I read Glass just on the internet somewhere and loved it. So I want to read more from her. I want to finish this year The Mad Woman in the Attic. So I'll have to pester Candy about that and see if she wants to keep buddy reading it, because I do want to, we got yay far into it, so not very. And then there were just too many other books to read. The story of my life. But I think I've now read most of the books discussed in here. I might end up coming up against a few that I haven't, but I think I've read most of them. We shall see. But the start that I made on it was very interesting, and then there were just too many other interesting competing things. One of which is this tome. This is The Brontes by Julia Barker. I am that far into it. So I'm about at the point where the two eldest girls have unfortunately passed away at this point, and the other kids have been brought home, and they're in their scribble mania phase. The chapter is called Scribble Mania. Making up their worlds and whatnot. So they're still kids, all living at home with their dad at the moment. It's a very easy book to read. It's just a million pages long. I started this, sort of. This is The Gothic Body, Sexuality, Materialism, and Degeneration at the Fin de Siècle. I started this for Gothic November. Really? Language, jeez, you'd think I'd be better at it. Anyway, it's really interesting so far. I just didn't get through as much Gothic literature as I wanted in Gothic November, and that's that. So if I can't finish it, it seems decidedly not like a summer read. So if I don't finish it this winter, I'll save it for next fall. I don't know. One of the other ones I want to read, which I have to be in the right mindset for, because mental health issues, is Suicide in the Gothic. So proceed with caution with this one, but it is something that happens often enough in Gothic fiction that somebody wrote a book about it. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. This is sort of Gothic. This is The Earth Strikes Back, an anthology of ecological horror that I've been meaning to read for 2 Gothic Novembers now, and just haven't, because I don't know why. Anyway, Mother Earth has been suffering at the hands of her children, etc., etc. Are only the most obvious signs of mankind's ingratitude to the planet. Cautionary, often shocking volume, etc., etc. Anyway, the Earth is annoyed with humans, which is not an unreasonable response to humans. I am often annoyed at humans, and I am one. So the Earth has opinions about this and strikes back, as the title would suggest, and I don't really falter for that, frankly. So we'll see how that goes. I do want to listen to, I have one of the BBC versions of Hamlet with, I think, David Tennant, which I've watched before. And this has notes and commentary as well, and an introduction discussing the critical and historical background of the play, other commentary, and whatever. So I'll read that. The introduction and notes take up like the first this much of the play, and then there are appendices. So the actual play is this middle section, but actually half of each page is also notes. So these Arden Shakespeare books are really good. They're the academic versions they're like the authoritative, according to some, versions of the plays, and because there are many possible versions of plays. And yeah, I've got the Arden Shakespeare for a lot of them, like 20 or something. And it's been a while since I've watched Hamlet. Also, watching Shakespeare is not cheating. It was meant to be watched. It was never meant to be read, technically, was never read in his lifetime, was never compiled into one volume in his lifetime. So go watch a movie. It's fine. Anyway, as somebody who has both a theater degree and a library degree, just watch the movie. It's not cheating. But I do want to read some of the commentary around it, and the main reason I want to read it is because it's a touch Gothic-ish, well before the Gothic, well, not well before, but 100 years or so before the Gothic genre really took off. But it's also central to Ulysses, which I will finish this year. Well, this year being 2026 now. I'm filming this on December 31st, but I will finish Ulysses hopefully in January. I keep saying hopefully this month, every month, but one of these months it'll actually turn out to be true. I want to read Timothy Steele's All the Funds and How You Say a Thing. This is an explanation of meter and versification. And it was recommended in Stephen King's book, An Ode Less Traveled, which is one of my all-time favorite books on poetry. I've read it 3 times, 4, I don't know how many times. I'll read it again someday, I'm sure. Oh, this book I heard of on Candy's channel, and then I found it at the used bookstore. This is Beginning Theory, An Introduction to Literary and Cultural Theory. Now, I've taken a few English classes, but in like 2005, okay? So 20 years ago. It's been a minute. And I don't remember most of them. And most of them were very theater-centric because I got my undergrad in stage management in theater. So most of the literature we read were plays, sometimes poetry and other literature, like you had to take a couple English 101 and 102 or 110 or however they number them type courses in the first year. And then after that, it focused really pretty exclusively on theater. So I read a lot of Shakespeare and Brecht and Chekhov and Ionesco and all sorts of Beckett. A range. A lovely range, Molière. All sorts. However, I feel like either I didn't learn or wasn't paying close enough attention or don't remember some of this basic literary theory. And so some of these books I've got that have criticism talk about criticism from within different literary frameworks. And sometimes I have a, vague idea of what I think I have a vague idea of what most of them are, but I don't have a very clear picture of what most of them are, or all of them are anyway, a few of them. But, so this is theory before theory, structuralism, post-structuralism and deconstruction, postmodernism. Like I know some of the terms for the periods that interest me, like modernism, like the Romantic poets, like the Gothic, things like that. But some of these other things, there's feminist criticism, queer theory, Marxist criticism, new historicism. Like, I don't know what new historicism is. What is that? I should learn, probably, what that is. And then it goes into, and post-colonial criticism. I do like that. Stylistics, narratology. I've never heard of narratology before. I assume it's the study of narration. Eco-criticism. That sounds interesting. Literary theory. Theory after theory. I don't know what that means. I don't know what presentism is. I don't know what new asceticism is, or cognitive poetics, or post-humanism. What is post-humanism? I know what humanism is, but like things like that. So I will, it's slightly falling apart. I will take some book glue to it, and then once I've fixed the spine, I will dive into it, probably just, a little bit at a time throughout the year. I'm not sure. It's a book I want to read, like, in just a few sittings in a week or two. I think I want to space it out throughout the year. And then see what parts of it I can notice in the books I'm reading. I've got a bunch of these books, the Cambridge Companion to This, That, and the Other. This is the Sonnet, which I started last year. Really want to finish this year. I've got a few of the Romantic poets too, so whenever I have like cyclical interests. There are certain things that I'm always interested in, like the Gothic, but I read in segments of a few weeks or months at a time. I'll read a ton of Gothic stuff, and then I won't for a few months, and then I will again, and then I'll read something else for a while, and then I'll get back to the Gothic again. British Romantic poetry is sort of like that, where I've gotten into a couple cycles with that, so I've got some of these books about those poets when I want to get back into it. Okay. Language things. Do I want to do that next? Might as well. So I've been working on French. I think I'll finish Jane Eyre today, which would be very exciting. I will not finish the Kamau Daoud book today, but I will finish that this year. This month, I mean, hopefully in the next few days. And then I've got some audiobooks. I really want to see if I can try The Count of Monte Cristo this year in French as an audiobook. I know the language is easy, at least in English, and it's extremely fast-paced. So it's 1,000,000 words long, but it's so fast-paced that you don't notice. At least that was my experience reading it in English. So I want to see, I'll just probably listen to the first couple chapters in French and see how that goes, because I don't want to miss everything, and it's been a long time since I've read it. So I'll sort of test out the waters. And then I read I Who've Never Known Men last year. Did I read it last year? I think in 2024 I read that and loved it, by a Belgian author, Jacqueline Hartmann. Somehow it became a BookTok book. I'm not on TikTok because it's terrifying. I don't actually know how it became a BookTok book, because it doesn't seem like the usual fare, but more power to it. It's a fantastic book, and I want to read the French original, which is Moi qui n'ai pas connu les hommes. I did not say that very fluidly. I might try Frankenstein in French, because I just read that also last year, I think. Don Juan by Molière. Moi Tituba Sorcière by Maurice Condé from Guadeloupe. I read Crossing the Mangrove, which was too difficult for me in French, but that was a year and a half ago. So I've improved since then. And I read that one half in French, half in English. Like, I had both versions of the book, so I go back and forth between the two. When I needed a break from the French, I'd read in English just to pick up the flow, and then try French again, and then back and forth. And then I've got an audiobook of La Vérité sur l'affaire Harry Quebert, I don't know, by Joel Dicker. This won a big French literary prize a while back, and it was on sale on Audible, so I got it. It might be too hard for me, but I might, by like the end of the year, who knows. La Première Enquête de Maigret. I'm really, like, I'm getting better at the R's in French, but I still they still trip me up quite a lot. By Georges Simenon. Maigret is a detective, so I don't think it will be that difficult, because it's a detective series, and this is the first one, I think, in the series, or his first investigation anyway. And so I kind of want to try that, and then see if it's at my reading level or close enough that I can follow it. Then I might get into the series, because like, I can listen to, what am I listening to right now besides Jane Eyre? I was listening to something else that I'm not as familiar with as Jane Eyre, and it was still a bit too hard. So I'd like something that's a bit easier than that to get more fluid with my reading or listening, and so it's just not quite so challenging. And then when I read something that is more challenging, more parts of it are easier, and then it's just the hard parts that I have to, like, look up the odd word or whatever. I don't know if that made any sense. It made sense in my head, so that's my goal. I got this in Iceland. This is why can't I say that? Indésirable. The Undesirable, Unwanted, is that what it's called in English? By Yrsa Sigurdardóttir. This cover is creepy. It is a creepy book. It's one of the first books I read of hers, and it's still one of my favorites. I think I've read all of her books in English now. And it is so atmospheric and so moving and eerie, and I just loved everything about it, so I got it in French. I want to try, this might also be too hard for me, so I might be later in the year once I get more practice in. But I want to read Le Parfum. Prose and Petticoats is doing this for her book club in December, so I may try it in French then. It's a German book originally, I think. The author is German anyway. And it is creepy as all get out, and the subject matter is terrible. Oh yeah, YouTube might not like that cover. But the writing is gorgeous, and I loved it. So yeah. La Main by Marguerite Duras. I want to read. I might not like this book. I know what it's about. I've read the synopsis of it, and I've read about it and other people's opinions about it and that sort of thing. And people have strong opinions about it because the girl is underage when she starts dating this older guy in Asia, and they have an affair, and which wouldn't be called an affair today, but it was then. And so it's a little bit complicated in that regard. So I might not end up liking the book, but I want to give it a go just so that I can say I've read it, basically, or tried it. I started reading this and then got distracted by Jane Eyre and a few other things. This is Les Liaisons Dangereuses by Choderlos de Laclos. I don't know how to say it. Choderlos? Don't know how to say his name. Anyway, it's also weird. It's like people need a moral compass. But that's kind of the fun of it. Like, the people are not good people in the book, the main characters. It's an epistolary novel, so they're writing letters to each other, which I didn't realize going into it. I sort of knew what it was about. I've seen, what's that movie that was the, like, early 2000s adaptation of it with the popular actors at the time? I can't remember. Anyway, I saw that. I think I may have seen the movie of this, so I know what it's about. And it is a bit above my level, but it's not, like, impossibly so. I can follow the story. So I'm good with that. This one I want to finish too. This is not actually that difficult. This is Albert Hourani's Histoire des Peuples Arabes, The History of the Arab People. I've read this in English. It's a thick book with very tiny print. But it's fascinating. And I know a lot of the history, and the great thing about reading history is all the political words, economic words, geographical words, they're all the same. They're all Latin-based. So they're basically the same in French and English, just with a French accent, which I am bad at, but it makes it easier to read. So I will hopefully finish that this year. Well, at least, if I don't finish it, at least I want to putter away at it. And then, so that's my French goal. I'd set a goal, I think, of 15 books in French this year, which I'm not going to quite meet. I think I'll get to 13 with Jane Eyre. So I want to try again for about 15 next year. See how that goes. And if I can beat that, then fantastic. For Arabic, okay, I started with Arabic this year. Did pretty well for a few months and then fell off. So I've got these books. These are short stories in whatever language by Ollie Richards. They're all the same stories in each book, just translated into different languages. So I have the English one, just so I could understand the story. They're published by Teach Yourself. And then I have the Arabic one, which says intermediate. It's not intermediate, it's beginner. So I've read the first 3, I think, 2 or 3. I have to reread them and reread them and like, these are the sort of stories that I'll reread maybe a dozen times or something each until I get sick of them, basically. And then I've got a few books in this series for the same thing. These are Arabic readers. These are in Modern Standard Arabic. He has ones in Egyptian and I think Levantine Arabic as well. This is Petra. Albetra. And so these two boys, who are, I think, in high school or just out, go to Petra together for one of their birthday. And there's an unexpected turn. Anyway, it's not a bad story. It's actually pretty good. I like it. It's dual language, so it's got the English and the Arabic, and it's got enough space to, like, write notes and things. Sound things out. So I've done that a little bit. This slows me right down. So I don't do this for the whole thing. I just do it for bits and pieces as I feel so inclined. And then the rest of the time, I just listen and read and listen and read and listen and read and just keep doing that until I understand more than I used to, which takes a very long time, but it's fun. So we'll see what kind of progress I can make this year. I'm going to try and start off January with slightly more consistency. I was better with consistency in French, better than I've ever been before. So I made better progress, I think, than I've ever made before, which is not at all surprising. That's usually how that works, which I know, and yet I'm not consistent. Okay, one of these random books I want to read is The Mirror and the Palette, Rebellion, Revolution, and Resilience, 500 Years of Women's Self-Portraits. That's an art book I want to read. Oh, I do have Helen Frankenthaler's art book too. I want to read that one. Okay, and then the last section, before I go on for too long, is my Read Around the World challenge. So I've got this little book, which is my bookish passport, and each country has its own page, and I write down the books I've either read or want to read and check them off once they're read. And I think I'm about 70% around the world at this point, and yeah, it's so much fun. I've got one of those scratch off maps, you know, the ones that have gold foil over the country and then you scratch them off when you travel to the country. Well, I've traveled to like 2 other countries besides Canada, being the US and Iceland. And I won't be going to the US anytime soon because the current administration is bananas. But also they'd take one look at my social media history and be like, no, you're not allowed. We don't like you. Which I will take as a compliment. Thank you very much. Anyway, I use this map for books. When I've read a book from that country, I scratch off the foil to reveal the country. And then for the Pacific Islands, it didn't have most of them because they're teeny tiny and it's just a little map. So I got a bigger National Geographic map that is beautiful and has all the countries, and sometimes I'll just like study it. It's hanging up in my bedroom and I'll just stand there next to the wall and like find all the places. And so when I read a book, like I was reading Don't Be Afraid, Gringo, which is about a Honduran activist's life. And so then I was looking up, okay, where is Honduras? Like I know how to find Honduras on a map. I have a vague idea of where everything is in Central America, but you know, like I might get Honduras and Nicaragua mixed up, because what do I know? So this is the sort of thing I want to get a little better at as I'm reading around the world. And so then I'll look at the map and try and like orient myself where the cities are, where the action takes place in the story in relation to like the capital and whatever. So that's that notebook. And then these are the books that I've got a ton of books I could read for this. These are the ones I for sure want to read. I think I've got an audiobook for Bulgaria, but I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, I found it on Libro FM and had an audiobook credit, so huzzah, I'll do that. This is by a Nicaraguan author called The Country Under My Skin. She was from an upper class family, but she became a Sandinista. And this was in the time when they were fighting the Contras that were backed by Nixon and the Americans and that whole thing. Which I don't really know much about other than the words Iran-Contra affair and Nixon. You know, that was basically the extent of my knowledge. So I read this book about the Honduran activist, which is where the Americans were based throughout this whole fiasco. And this is now a Nicaraguan activist. So I want to read that. That sounds very interesting. This is Ali and Nino by Kurban Said. It's a Azerbaijani book, although I think it's a pseudonym, so everybody thinks he's Azerbaijani, but nobody actually knows who the author is, I don't think. For the Pacific Islands and some of the Caribbean ones, I do have to cheat a little bit because I can't find an actual like book length novel, history, whatever, memoir, whatever, from every single island country because there are many. And also I'm including the territories that probably should be countries in their own right, but are still like departments of France or some such nonsense, or the US. So this is, so what I'm doing for those countries where I can't find a full-length book is short stories, because I can, I think, find at least a few short stories for every country in the world. So this is Indigenous Pacific Islander eco-literatures. And they are the ones who are at the forefront of the fight against climate change because they're losing their countries. Like literally, I think it's Vanuatu? What's that country called? Oh, I've forgotten already. That's terrible. I looked it up yesterday. How can I have forgotten what country it is? Let's see. Hold on. Vanuatu. I think it's that country that has a relationship with Australia now to resettle a certain number of citizens every year to a specific part of Australia that they can call home now, because their country is going to be underwater in a few years. It's going to cease to exist as the island they know it because of the rising oceans, because it's such a low-lying country that they're not going to have a home really, really soon. And there are some other Pacific islands that are in the same sort of boat. In some cases, like throughout the Federated States of Micronesia, there might be some islands that are low-lying and some that are higher, so some people might be able to move to another island within Micronesia, but some won't be able to. So that's horrible. But this has short stories by people from Fiji, Cook Islands, Uvea, which is Wallis. I like that I also looked up the, because some of these just have the British and American names, which are not what the people there call them. For instance, the Mariana Islands, the Chamorro people don't call it that. New Zealand is Aotearoa. Not sure I can pronounce any of these properly. New Caledonia is Kanake. I've written them out, but I don't know how to pronounce them. Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, Vanuatu are all in here. Nina, I don't know where that is. Hawaii, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, and for some places like Papua New Guinea or Hawaii, I could, and certainly New Zealand, I can find books for those, and I will, or I already have. Fiji, I think I found a book for. Kiribati, I don't know if I found a book for. The Cook Islands, quite possibly not, so I don't know. French Polynesia, which includes Tahiti, which I didn't realize was part of French Polynesia, which was a department of France until the Olympics, the last Summer Olympics, which is appalling. How did I not know that? I don't know. Anyway, it sounds fascinating. So I really want to get to that this year. This is a book from Latvia called The Green Cow by Christine Lberga. I always have to think before I pronounce some of these names because I don't know. I try to, sound them out, but I'm sure I don't always get them right. Anyway, there's a tale of Harvey the Imaginary Giant Rabbit. I don't know. Anyway, it's a tale of acceptance or the lack thereof, both by oneself and society at large, personal isolation, and the quest for individual freedom at all costs. She tells the story of a woman in a psychiatric hospital and that of her lifelong companion that only she can see, the green crow. The green crow. Why did I think it was the green cow? Green crow. So that sounds pretty fascinating too. This is The Night Circus and Other Stories by Ursula Kovalik. Not that Night Circus, a different Night Circus. She is from Slovakia but lives in Bratislava. So I can't remember which country I was gonna count this for. But anyway, it's naturalistic and fabulistic. Don't know how that will work, but it's fable, fairy tale, sort of in the everyday domestic settings of kitchen, garden, and car. Women love and lose. Strange creatures are found by the garden gate. This is a strangely written back paragraph. Somebody didn't edit that very well. Dream dogs are liberated from the icy prisons of a fridge. It sounds weird. And sometimes I'm okay with weird. I mean, I'm working my way through Ulysses at the moment. It's pretty spectacularly weird. Anyway, it's ordinary settings plus fairy tale weirdness. We'll see if I like it. I don't know. It's a short book of short stories. This is The Letter to Jimmy by Alain Mabanco. I think it was originally written in French, actually. But it's in honor of his literary hero, James Baldwin, and an effort to place Baldwin's life in context within the greater African diaspora. So it's a novel, but it's based on some of the author's personal experiences living as an African in the US. And then Tours Baldwin's Life. I'm not really sure. It seems like a novel. Oh no, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just a memoir. I can't tell. Anyway, I like James Baldwin. That's what sold me on it. This is Sunset Oasis by Bahatar. I don't know. Anyway, it won the inaugural International Prize for Arabic Fiction. This author is Egyptian. And I don't really know what the book is about, but I wanted to read another Egyptian author. I've read Egyptian authors before, but I wanted to read another one. This, I think, is a Malian book, and I've never read a book from Mali. Is this from Mali? Yeah, I think. Yes, it is. It's apparently one of their classics from 1968 called Bound to Violence by Yambo Olugoim. I know basically nothing about Mali except for what I looked up about this yesterday. Like, almost nothing at all. I can find it on a map. I know actually I read a book about Timbuktu once, the library. Anyway, that's it. That's all I know. Nothing more recent than ancient Timbuktu, which is fascinating, by the way. Saturdays for Funerals. This used to be a library book and now has no dust jacket. It was withdrawn from stock Dublin City Public Libraries, so I borrowed it from the Europeans, because sometimes African books are really hard to find in France. This is by Unity Dow, and I can't remember what it's about because the dust jacket is gone and doesn't have a summary. Oh yeah, it touches on, I think it's a novel, but it's centered around the HIV/AIDS epidemic. In what country are we in here? Oh, I can't remember that either. Let's see. Botswana. Never read a book from Botswana. I do need to, I'm gonna dump these books on the ground by mistake. I do need to read more. African countries are the ones where I've got the most countries still to read on this journey around the world. Africa and the Pacific Islands. This is A History of Saudi Arabia by Madawi Al-Sharid. This has been on my TBR every year for the last 3 years. Haven't read it yet. It's a history of modern day Saudi Arabia. I mean, Saudi Arabia is the modern state. It didn't used to be called Saudi Arabia because it had nothing to do particularly with the House of Saud that now rules it. It was just Arabia. Anyway, Madawi Al-Rashid is both a woman and from the Middle East, and a historian. Well, anthropologist, social anthropologist. And it is so hard to find books, histories of the Middle East, in English by people from the Middle East. Most of them are by Englishmen. Yeah, most of them are by Englishmen. Sometimes Americans, but mostly English and mostly men. So I really want to read that. Anyway, that's my rather ginormous stack of books that I want to read for my DIY literature degree, for language learning, and for reading around the world. So that'll be fun. I'll go on a little literary adventure, or a big one, depending. Anyway, that's that for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.